Welcome to the Real Next webinar. I'm Jeff Finn, and Matthew Smith is joining us as always today to give us a great walkthrough of the Real Next solution and how it helps you never miss a lead again and helps you to build a follow-up system that actually works. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're delighted that you're all here and looking forward to sharing this lead management platform capability that we have. So, I know that if you're like me, you're not remembering things as well as you always did or thought you could. So you're not going to remember everything that you think you're supposed to do in the future, and particularly when you have things that you need to follow up on in a week or a year or longer term. So make sure that you're logging activities, setting actions, and building a follow-up routine that begins to tell you every day what are the highest priorities of things that you need to follow up based on what you've done in the past. So RealNext gives you a great solution. Matt's going to show you how to take advantage of that. Setting automated reminders, but having the personal touch. So it's critical not just to have a date and time to follow up, but have a profile. What did you talk about in the past? What's that history? What's the client looking for? What do they like? What don't they like? Who are they as people? And understanding them and knowing things that remind you to be top of mind when you talk to them, that you can bring up something that makes you look better, knowing about their properties, their portfolio, their recent vacation, or their kids, or whatever it might be. People that you may have great relationships, this stuff, but some people you don't have as much touch with, you might not. And then if you can establish a timeline and a cadence to remind yourself, not just one follow-up at a time, but a whole series of follow-ups and touch points that you want to put in place to make sure that you're staying in close touch with your leads as well as your best contacts and clients over time. And then to make sure that you don't forget the old contacts and set a cadence that begins to profile and process your primary people that you do business with all the time, or they are your best that you want to talk to every month. Those that you want to, you could do business with, but maybe you're competing with others for, and those you want to just stay in touch with every quarter or every 6 months. And certainly the people that you've done business with are maybe not as active in the market, but you don't want to forget, and they could be a great source of either referrals or opportunities to make sure that you're at least talking to them once a year, and set them up in buckets and make sure that you have all of your past clients in there, your best prospects in there, and the right frequency with which to engage and make sure you're there when they get ready to make a decision. And before they're ready to make a decision, you're building that rapport and the relationships. I in my career, and the people that I've worked with, all too often they're lamenting the fact that they called the person just after a lease renewal or just after they made a decision to hire someone else. So getting ahead of that curve, and particularly with lease renewals and things that there's a key date for, make sure you're getting 18 months ahead of that, 2 years ahead of that, whatever it is. So you're not coming in and you think 6 months might be enough, but it's not. You want to make sure that you're tracking your lease renewals annually between the start date and the commencement and the expiration, and not just waiting until the 11th hour to get back. And you're tracking hold periods. That certain people hold properties for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and know when that might be, and to make sure you're managing and maintaining relationships in between the time they buy and the time they might want to sell, and to evaluate each one and rate and rank and begin to organize them so that you're serving up yourself with those prioritized prospects. And your pipeline. Matt's going to talk about leads for opportunities and pitches and pursuits, and your sign calls and your listings and leases. I'm sorry about the formatting of this. I'm not sure what happened, but it came in a little bit awkward on this slide, so we'll fix that for you going forward. But Matt, you've got a lot to cover, a little bit of time, so we're going to dig in and get into it. We, as always, are open for questions along the way. We will do our best to address them while Matt's presenting. I'll engage with him and try to address your questions maybe in the background if needed. And otherwise, we are recording, and you'll have this for your reminder, follow-ups, and sharing with your team. Matt,
absolutely.
Yours.
Absolutely. Always, Jeff, thank you so much for this. Remember, we do have these recorded on our YouTube channel. We also send them out afterwards. So if you weren't able to attend or you have to jump off early, these are always recorded for you. So let's talk a little bit more about the follow-up. And we always say things are always lost in the follow-up or they're won in the follow-up. And I'd be willing to bet by a show of hands, your calendars look like this. This is my dashboard here, and I really want to hit home on this example. And if I did a survey, you're going to have a lot of these inside of your calendar, dashboard, Excel sheet, or anything else that you're using to manage your business. And if you don't have some sort of aging chart, it's time to make sure that you get this into RealNext. This will really help you. But what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see events that are 803 days old. That means your money is left on the table, or it means you're creating follow-ups just to create follow-ups. So we're going to create a process-driven approach to being active in the market and never miss a lead. Everything is about process on how we do things. And that starts with, creating that profile. And I had a good call with a client of ours this morning, and it really just comes down to creating that buy box, that tenant box, the person who you want to work with, and creating that so we can make sure we track that. And so a lot of that comes into our custom layouts. And so in my buy box here for the investor side, these are the things that the investors that I work with that I want to track in my market. Now you can create different layouts within our program, but one of the ones that I want to focus in on here today is our client rating. It's a simple rating that we can use. And these client ratings are typically A, B, and C. If you want to put them as 1, 2, and 3, hot, cold, warm, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's still the same concept. But we want to make sure we touch them in certain intervals. These intervals most likely are going to be A's are 90 days, B's are going to be 180 days, and then C's are once a year or 365 days or 365 and a quarter days. Once you have that, then we can really start to make sure that you're not missing any of these leads. And what I mean by that is, instead of creating a ton of follow-ups that I showed you on my dashboard earlier, you're simply going to go in and you're going to click one of the filters that you pre-saved. I'm going to say my A clients in 90 days. I don't have any. Awesome. Then I'm going to go down to my B clients in 180 days. I have 2, and I'm going to call them. And then if I have any C's in 365, then I would see them, and I have no C's I need to call. That's fantastic. So I'm going to go back to my B's, and then I'm going to go and give them a call. I like to put everything in a nice little split screen because, again, I want to make sure that every client in my system has value. So I put in the investor information. If you're working leasing and you want to put tenant information in there, it's great. And if you want to store it on the contact record or the company record, it really doesn't matter. It's just really making sure that you have a cadence. I recommend a time block. Call your A's 15-minute time block, B's 15-minute time block, and a C's 15-minute time block. And it will really just make sure that you're going to crush the follow-up and you're not stuck in that following up just the follow-up mode. And look, as salespeople, we have a tendency to do that, and we're here to help break some of those habits. Now, I know some of you really enjoy reminders and have the reminders. So one is, every time you make a call, don't forget you can click the dial. Mac, PC, or anything else, we do integrate with the phones that are out there. Comment, GoToMeeting, Skype, Teams. You can even use things like PhoneLink to call directly from your Android or iPhone. We want to put in why we're calling. If it's pertaining to one of our assignments, this will do 2 things for us. It'll tag that as a reach out for that assignment. And I'm going to show you why this is important here as I move forward. But as we track those histories, these are a way that we can put in our notes. I know a lot of you are using AI Note Taker, and if you call most clients and you turn it on, they're probably going to ask you to turn it off or hang up. I like a simple summary. Had a good call with Don. Don's looking for some land. He wants to put a nut farm out there, blah, blah, whatever that would be, it puts it in there. The information that's in here is all filterable, and I'll show you how that's going to work as well as we move forward. Now, you can always do a conventional follow-up if there's a next step. Again, the more information you fill out, the more powerful and the more the system works for you. So building those profiles and tracking those histories are great. And you might be one of those folks that just really enjoy timelines, and timelines are a way that you can stay in front of people in an area. So if we just sign a lease with Don and we want to create a timeline on Don's record, I actually can just come over here and click schedule. And this will then remind me that every year I need to call him. And in year 3, I need to set a meeting up with Don. Now you can set this timeline on anything, a company, a contact, a property, a space, a lease comp, a sales comp, a project, doesn't matter. It's all able to be done. Now, the nice thing about a timeline is if you create one timeline and you want to shift any of these, you can easily just drag and drop. So if you want to move some of these around, if you want to edit some of these, while you're creating that timeline, in the next step before you actually enact it, it allows you to change some of these and then you can close. And what that does is it's going to set that automated system to appear in your calendar when it's due. So if it's due in 3 months, you won't see it until the time frame that you have set in your timeline. Maybe it's 3 days prior that you see it. And that way we can stay focused. We really need to stay hyper focused on what we're doing and how we're doing things. So building those profiles and tracking those histories are really important to make sure that we're logging those activities and setting that next action. Those timelines are great to be enabled for anything. Due diligence period. You might have a team of juniors and you want to have them touch every 3 days, 3 months. Now, if you want the bang bang workflow, all you got to do is come over here and go to email automation. And now what we can do is we can schedule an automated workflow that goes and works simultaneously as your workflow of calling and doing tasks. I'm not going to schedule this one here, but you can create any kind of automated workflow, whether that is a letter-based email where it's, dear so-and-so, your lease expires on so-and-so date, or any other details in there. You can do them also HTML-based. So we're very flexible when it comes to the email side. Again, letter-based emails, newsletter-based emails, listing-based emails, or anything else on insights on the market, just leased, just sold, market activity, or anything else you can put in there. And you can merge fields from inside of the system. So that data that you have that you're keeping track of becomes a valuable asset for you within inside of the program. So you can do one, like let's just create an automated email, no problem. Or let's send a single campaign. Let's send a timeline or create a follow-up. So we give you many different ways that you can create those workflows so you can be as efficient as possible throughout the program. And establishing those timelines is real easy. You simply go to timelines, manage timelines. Now, on the manage timeline section, you'll see a little blue button in there that will walk you through how to create that timeline. There are also other little buttons in here. Now, mine are turned off on this browser because I'm incognito mode, but Guide Me is here to help you with everything in the upper right-hand corner. Super powerful. I know Brandon puts a lot of time into it to make sure that everybody has a workflow to walk through. So if you get stuck doing something, Guide Me is a great way to do it. And then obviously, all of us are here to help you make sure that you're doing it. So those A, B, and C cadences are great. Now, they're not just for contacts, they're also for companies and contacts. So let's say this. I'm a leasing broker and I'm going to reach out to all the companies in the market. I want to know every company that does business in my region. Awesome. I'm a regional specialist. Now, Jeff, I have a problem. Mayday, mayday, mayday. What's the problem, Matt? Well, I put all my histories on the contacts and I want to find what companies I'm going to be working with. How do I handle that? No problem, Jeff. I got you covered. Or no problem, Matt. I don't know how I'm role playing here. All you have to do is hit simple filter. Simple filter, and you're just going to type in the word history. We're going to say does not have. In this case, I'm going to say have because I have a lot of companies in my database. And then I'm going to say, let's see these companies we haven't talked to. In the good old 90 days, you'll hear me talk about it ad nauseum. It's 90, 90, 90, 90 all the time. I don't want to be in front of them too much, but I want to make sure I'm top of mind. Now I'm going to check this box, and if you can't see this box, you zoom in. Pull the screen closer or look at your screen. This is magical right here. It's going to say include contacts. So what this is doing is it's searching, and I have like 40,000 companies, maybe 38,000 companies in mine. In seconds, it's going to search the team that I'm a part of, and it's going to search all the histories in every company, but it's also going to search every company contact that's in there that's related to those companies, right? So there's 37 companies in here. that I have in my view, but I actually have 38,000 companies in my database. It's going to search every 38,000 company and all the contacts in there to find the ones with histories. Now we can do this with don't have, or we can say, phone call, email, task, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And you can get as granular. So I have 13 of them that I actually made a touch point on. So 13 out of 37 is not bad. 13 out of 38,000 is pretty bad. So you can see in here that you're always keeping track of those leads, which brings me to another point. These filters for these last activities can be done on contacts, companies, properties, it doesn't matter. You can even save a map. So you're always in front of those leads that are out there. Now, everybody defines a lead a little bit differently. You can save these so it becomes real easy. You can create a workflow view like mine within a spreadsheet, but we want to stay in front of those clients. Past clients are huge. New clients are great. And then clients that may or may not do business with us is another way. So one of the things that I really wanted to focus in on here today is not only rating and ranking, and people can change. So let's think about this. I have my client rating here. Now, Steve, I just found out that Steve is heading to South Africa. He just bought a house there. So he's going to be a little bit less. I can actually change my client rating right here. And you can do it in the drop down, but my screen, since it's split, it's going to be a little bit harder. Now I can save that. And Steve now is a C rank rating. You can also do it without a split screen. It's real easy, but you can move your A, B, and C's around depending on where you're at with them. If you're calling somebody every 90 days and they're not answering, and they're also not opening their emails, and you'll see while you're calling Steve that these emails have been dropped. So you didn't realize this, but Steve's emails are bad. And so now we need to get an updated email, and you can see that using the real campaigns along with your call, reach out, and everything else to make sure you're tracking that key information. So whether you track the lease expiration information on the contact, the company, the property, or the space, we can create these easy fields for you to be able to filter on, so you're always staying in front of clients. Now, what will happen is your calendar is going to start looking like this, and you're going to see things that are 6 days old because that one follow-up you just didn't get to and you got to put off them, but everything else is caught up. And then your pipeline and leads are going to start looking like this. It's going to be filled up. Why? Because you're able to follow up with those leads. You're able to follow up with the people that are going to purchase, and you're not focusing on the people that won't. I continue to hear everybody's busy, and I said this for the last year. Going on social media and saying that you work 100 hours a week isn't a flex. Saying that you work 5 hours a week, 5 days a week, and you make 3 million gross commission using RealNext is a flex. That's what you do. And I'll tell you, the ones that are using RealNext, making that commission, aren't posting that on social media. They're watching all of you say you work 80 hours. We're here to help you so you're not working 80 hours. You're working 8 hours and making that same kind of revenue. So how do I get my leads to this? How did I create a board like this? Pretty cool, huh? You get to see where you're at with each one of your leads. And then what do you need to do to progress each one of your leads forward? I had a call from Becky the Legend, and she showed me her lead report, and she was super proud of it because, and I was super proud of her too, because when she showed me that lead report, it really told a story. It told the story of who was looking at the property, what they thought the property would be worth based upon the marketing package she's created. And the marketing package supported the property value, and it was really neat to see. Now, not everybody that comes in as a lead is going to be the right fit for that property. That doesn't mean you can't find them another property. So creating marketing activity reports like this, having those lead reports, managing your pipeline in a Kanban, and keeping track of your initial meetings, the valuations, the presented valuations. Maybe you're working with clients to represent them for their space needs, and you're setting that appointment, and you're going through the survey and such. You can manage all this with an easy drag and drop Kanban board, so those leads never fall through. Those leads could be properties to sell and list. Those could be companies to represent. Those could be contacts in your market that you want to stay in front of all the time, or buyers. whatever you want to categorize them, we have a way to manage them within inside of our program, easy, fast, and effective. Now I say this.
Before we jump, I think it'd be helpful to show how do you did something in projects, which I think is a great way to deal with those buckets of leads. So talk about your pursuit buckets in projects and how you get them, rather than if you did everything in contacts, that's sort of your culling of your clients, not or your leads. Then you're bringing things into your opportunity pipeline, which you were just showing, and show how you track those and get them into that type of cycle.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic because again, that's what I was hitting on today is not everything should be in this section here, but when it gets to a certain point, and you got to write it down, document when you, and I have mine as seller pursuits and landlord pursuits because I track it around the building. So for me, it's important about the building. Ownership changes, the building doesn't, and so I want to keep track of it on the building. If you want to do contact, you can do that, and so you can create as many of these pursuits. And all I do is I come up here to settings, I go to system tables, project setup, and you look down in here and see if someone's already created one in here. And I just create one called seller pursuits. Now you can create a project called tenant pursuits, buyer pursuits, seller pursuits, development pursuits, my own acquisitions, acquisition pursuits. Well, it doesn't matter. Whatever your naming convention works. And then what are the stages of those pursuits? So for me, nobody's going to be in this section. So I have my contacts. My contacts don't become a lead until I set a meeting. So if you watch me work here at RealNext, you're going to notice that my stuff sits there until I get a meeting because that's the first sign that we could be doing business. Until that happens, you're still a contact to me. And you're still a contact afterwards, but we're going to have that meeting. The next thing that typically we do after the meeting is we're going to work on evaluation. But I also want to know that I presented the valuation to you. And this is kind of maybe a resting period where, there's going to a couple of days going to go by until we reach up. And then do we agree upon the value or were we off? And then do we lose the listing? I was on a call with Jeff and we were on with some global technology leaders in commercial real estate. And what did I think of, Jeff? It was the conversation was that it's the average is 7 to 10 days for a listing to go to market. I think that's what Jim was saying. And so this is a fantastic way to curate a buyer. So if you go here and you have this and you lose the listing, doesn't mean you can't come into the contact side over here and curate a buyer, send them an email of the property getting ready to go to market and set a meeting with them. A, it's a touch point. B, it's a fantastic way to bring a buyer. And you never know if the property doesn't sell and you did bring a buyer, maybe they call you and say, hey, look, I hired, broker Finn and he didn't work out. I know that, you wrote a couple LOIs. Would you want to list my property? I don't know if that would happen or not, but maybe it would, and that would be great. And so I think it's great to track those pursuits. Same thing with buyers. Look, if you have a buyer, put that in the buy box. It's so important. But if you have someone that said, hey, I have money to place and I have 45 days because I'm in a 1031, or I need to buy something, right? And I'm going to buy something as soon as I find it, put them in this project leads. Now, I might talk to 10,000 clients or 1,000 clients or 100 clients, but I'm only going to put in 5 or 10, maybe 15 or 20 that are going to be in here. Don't put everybody in here that says they want to buy. Put them through a qualification process. They have money hard, they're ready to go, stroke a check, whatever it would be. That's where I put it in there. And it just allows me to manage that process and it manages it much easier. So I want to go back to something that I hit on before. And I was really proud of Ben when he said, I track my history notes. Well, it's really important to track those history notes because as this conversation has never let a lead fall through, how many times has a building listed and it's blown out of escrow, Jeff? Does that ever happen?
It does, unfortunately.
So let's take that as an opportunity, not as the world's ending. Let's look at that as an opportunity and say, look, that wasn't the desired outcome. However, maybe that's the way that fate wanted it. You can come into history, do a quick search on your assign calls, and now what I can do is I can pull up all the contacts or companies that called on the building, I can also pull up all those leads on that listing. And now I have this list and I know that they called on the sign, and I can call each one of them one by one, and I can speed dial through here really quick. You can see how quickly I can do that. And I can send them an email, let them know that, hey, this deal fell out. We're looking for backup offers or anything else. It gives you another touch point. You're also generating an activity report you can send to the building owner, whether it's, space for lease and you manage the buildings for them, or it's a property for sale. You're doing that. But that's a way that you're never going to slip through the cracks with any of your leads through your contacts, companies, properties, spaces, or anything. And as more and more people realize that AI isn't this magical pot of gold, and it doesn't just find information that's not available, RealNext becomes more and more powerful. And as we tie it into our CRE marketing hub as time progresses, this data is going to be super powerful. So more and more of my clients that I have worked with personally, when I say my clients, they're clients that I work with personally, have been walking their market, have been diligently putting the data in here for all the buildings and spaces. And you can track it all right here in spaces and pull it up with a couple quick filters to manage that. And then the data you have from your space information, your property information, your buyer and your company profiles that are filled out, now we can unleash AI to say, hey, what's our preferred tenant that's in here? And AI says, hey, this is what it is. I think Jeff has some cool prompt that does that. And then you pipe it back in here and it gives you a list of the 20 people that are going to be those preferred, tenants to fill that building. And again, it's real simple to grab that information, fill in the blanks with your buy box, your leasing box, and you're never going to miss a lead again if you stick to these simple processes. And we're building a follow-up system that works. We don't need someone to text Jeff every 60 seconds and be like, you ready to buy, you ready to sell? We just need a process and a system that works for us, and that's what RealNext provides to you. Now, I know that I have a tendency to go fast, and Brandon told me to drink water, so I try to do that to be a little bit slower. And while we're going through this, a lot of questions get answered. But I want to walk through a couple things. The first question that everybody asks me is, Real Campaigns, what are they and how do they work? They're our built-in email marketing system, similar to your MailChimps and Constant Contacts, Mailguns, and everything else, but they're built into here with the data points. They're also probably going to be about 90% cheaper than what you're paying in the open market, maybe 10% cheaper, but hey, 10% is 10%. Even if it's the same cost, you're having the data within the system, which is better. Now, how does the email look when it comes out? Just like would in any other system. The last thing that everybody asks is, can I have a custom domain? Absolutely. We can put a custom domain on your email so it comes out of fintechnologies.com, info@fintechnologies.com. And it does track your opens, clicks, and opt-outs. And when they reply, it goes back to your email that you have in the RealNext settings. So whether that is your email from Gmail or Outlook, it's in there. And if you're setting up your synchronization with Outlook or Gmail, it'll actually tie in that email automatically for you. So if you send an email out and they said, hey, I'm interested in this property, I'm interested in touring this, hey, I need representation to find X, all that information is stored back in the RealNext program and is able to be filtered upon. So when you are sending these emails, you're never missing a lead because all that information is right inside of the program for you to easily filter and find. Now, with data, you can ingest as much data as you want through the import tool. So if you're looking for a new market, you're looking for new contacts to upload, if you have Constant Contact or MailChimp, if you have any other email provider out there besides Real Campaigns, email me after this webinar, msmith@realnext.com. I'll upload your contacts for you for free. Simple as that. We want you to do business and never miss a lead again. How are we doing on time, Jeff?
We are right on target, but still open for questions. So I think you've addressed most of them along the way, but let me see what's coming in. So here's one that just came in. Do you recommend to not add all inquiries to a project as a lead, but just the ones that are really interested? I can have hundreds of clients, hundreds of leads in on a project. So yeah, so there's two different things that Matt talked about. I think it's important. One, if you have a listing and you have sign calls, leads, and leads on that, there's one bucket and one way to put it in. Then the other thing that he was talking about was more lead prospecting for new business. So new business development and leads. So that whole churning of your lead pool to come into a project, an opportunity-based project management system, and the other would be, Matt, leads on a particular deal. How it may, I think they probably looked at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, and what I'll say is this is, you might get hundreds of leads on a listing for lease or for sale, right? And a lot of those leads are subpar. So bring those leads in, whether you're using our email scanning system to bring those leads in using our Outlook and Gmail scanner, that can bring those leads in and create a contact for you that way. But I'll have a conversation with him. Hey, Steve, here's what's going on. I'll feel him out. I'll fill out his buy box. And if he's someone that I think is a lead, I'm simply going to go here and I'm going to right click and say add to project and add Steve as a lead. If he's not a lead, again, I might just simply have that history and conversation in here that had a conversation with Steve. He was a RealNext Marketplace Pro lead from there. But when I'm creating that history and I'm calling out, this is the important part, okay? If you haven't paid attention the whole time here, this is the time to pay attention. This little box right here is magical. And it's magical in the way that what it's going to do is if you tie in the assignments that pertain to somebody. So if I manage 3 buildings, I'm going to tie in every one of the buildings in here that I manage, and I'm going to get credit for each one of them. Now, I don't remember my project names all the time because I'm just not that smart. But when it's in here now, what it is, it's an initial outreach for them on this, or it's a sign call, right? So what I'll do is if I get somebody that calls on a sign, and again, sorry for my annotation there, I'm going to simply right click and I'm going to say add history. And then I'm just going to put my event down in here and I'm going to put in a sign call. And then I'm just going to put in Matthew Smith, 858-458-1063. He called on the sign and he asked us what our hours were and when we're open. I'm going to pass the information over to the business that is there. I think it's Krispy Kreme Donuts, but whatever. But I want the owner of the building to know that, hey, my sign is actually working and such. So I would put everybody in here as a sign call, put their information in here. It's all filterable like that. If on that sign call you decide that, hey, I want to create a contact, you can do that right from the history window. Just hit new contact. And now you can type in the new contact information, company, and anything else. And it works out really well that way. But a lot of time, and now I know it came from Marketplace Pro, and you can track it anyway, but I'm just going to keep it as a sign call. I don't need them as a lead because it's just going to clutter up. I mean, if I wanted to say, hey, Jeff, I went to, I went and I listed this property and I got 85,000 leads. And Jeff goes, okay, well, why isn't the property sold? I probably don't look too good. It's better to say, look, we generated 87,000 inquiries. Out of that, I had, 6 leads that I qualified. And here is the report that I'm going to generate, Jeff, as that lead report there. And then if the property's overpriced or we need to, have some additional concessions or maybe TIs are the issue, those reports will help solve that with the owner as you go over with a building owner, property manager, whoever you're working with on that. And then you can say, here's some things that we need to change. And it works really good because then they come back and say, hey, can we counter this? Can we do this? What can we do to bring this one across? So I think that's a fantastic way to do it. The next way is on the buyer rep, tenant rep, whatever else. Again, you got to figure out what your qualifier is, and don't change your qualifier too much. And desperation doesn't help. I know it's tough as the sales rep, but for me, I don't put them on there until I have an initial meeting. So if I call you and you say you want to sell your building, great, but I don't put you on here until I actually physically have that meeting. And so you'll figure out what works best for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us or email me directly. I'll give you some of the best practices. And what works for somebody down the street from you might not work for you, and we'll help custom tailor that to make sure that your experience becomes the best experience within this program. And then we'll hopefully have you write some 5-star reviews for us. That would be really nice. You can also see where your leads come from on a map. That's actually cool. I am a map geek. If you don't know me, I am a data geek. I love it. So you can track where your opens and clicks came from. You can track where your sign calls and inquiries are coming from. You can do all this right in the RealNext program. And if you want to add pictures like a beautiful photo for Steve here, use our web links and you can drag and drop photos right into the program, right from a website. Boom, put in Steve's awesome face right here and do that. Always look for a photo though with her smiling, because cold calling someone without a smile and they're grumpy is really tough. That's why all my pictures in here have smiles. That way, when I get excited to cold call them, I'm like, this person's going to be nice. She's going to be really nice. Michelle's nice. Did that answer those questions for anybody that put them through? Hopefully it did.
I think we did. I think they cleared the bucket. There were a couple of questions again about the recording, which will come out automatically to you tomorrow from GoToWebinar. So be on the lookout for that, and all of the videos we have posted in the YouTube channel. Now, YouTube sometimes, and this one will be likely one of them, it won't allow, because it's showing phone numbers, even though these are all fake phone numbers and contacts that Matt has in for a demo purpose. They screen them and don't like anything that shows phone numbers to be displayed, pictures of phone numbers of people. So we will, those videos are on the GoToWebinar and still hosted there. So you'll get the link for that and have it accessible there, but it won't be in the YouTube archive, unfortunately. So that is it for today, Matt. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you all next time.
Oh, thanks, George. Appreciate you, man. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Bye.